Hey everyone, this is Nick from LEO Combatives, and you're listening to the Mega Talks podcast.
So let's talk about boxing. The most recent event was yesterday, and it consisted of Anderson Silva versus Tito Ortiz, which Silva done his damage against Ortiz and earned himself a first round knockout and a victory over Ortiz. Laid him flat on the canvas, out cold. And we also saw Holyfield and Belfort fight. Belfort knocked out Holyfield. We saw the interview with Holyfield after the fight. Said he didn't take any damage, but nonetheless, he got a stoppage in the fight, a TKO stoppage, technical knockout. Holyfield said he wasn't hurt, affected too much. He thought the stoppage was early, but nonetheless, it's a victory. And something about these fights that, I'm not exactly tracking. I'm watching some of the fights, but I don't know if these are counting on their pro records or if they're how they're sanctioned. If they're sanctioned as pro fights or just entertainment, but they're picking winners. And I'm not sure if this goes on, how they're categorizing this in their fight records or history or anything like that. This is one of last night's events was one of the ones I know that didn't contain a Logan or a Jake Paul on the card that, had a lot of other big fighters, but they've reached a point to where they're starting to have even more popular names that are on the card and trying to up the ante a little bit. Because after the fight, the guys challenged Jake Paul to a fight they want to make a fight between Jake Paul and Vitor Belfort for, they said, starting out at 25 million, winner take all. But during the conversation, they upped the ante up to 30 million, winner take all, in a full pro bout. So I'm not sure what they mean by the difference of their full pro bout versus the way they're handling the fights now. If they're meaning like 2 or 3 minute rounds or 10 rounds versus 8 rounds or what have you, but they want to put a full pro fight together between them two. So we'll see what happens. And I think they actually mentioned a date. And I think it's the Saturday after Thanksgiving, the Saturday before after Thanksgiving, one of the two. I think they mentioned that. So it's not that big of a turnaround time between now and then, if he takes the fight and goes through with it. Of course, we know Jake Paul can pretty much choose anybody he wants to fight because he's kind of the, I guess you could say, self-proclaimed leader of the boxing for now. And it's drawn a lot of attention to boxing. And hopefully this kind of sparks some people's interest to take a look back in boxing history and take a look at other boxers instead of just the big names on the card. Because we know a lot of the retired MMA guys are going after it because it's a good money grab. Seems to be a good pay opportunity, but what you're seeing is a lot of guys that have retired from fighting, go into the boxing, which, the physical demands of boxing, as far as like mental trauma or, trauma to the head, it's probably going to be a little bit more than MMA, but as far as like training and wear and tear on the body, it's as extensive as what MMA training would be. Just because of the simple fact that you're not just training to throw strikes with the hands. MMA consists of a lot of other types of arts lumped in there. So the physical demands are different. But like I said, a lot of the retired people are going after it for a money grab. What's interesting is people saying, they're getting paid more than MMA fighters. And you have Dana White going back at that, saying that, his fighters are paid well and making campaigns to why, MMA fighters are being paid well despite what the headlines say. And, it's to his advantage, to keep people in his organization because they're going to be tempted to go over to boxing. But yet, have we seen somebody to just hang up the gloves at MMA specifically and to jump over into boxing because the money was better? Now, will that come for some people? I think some of the bigger name fighters in any of these MMA organizations could make the jump if their contracts were up, and you could see, the trend increase even more for boxing. And to bring up a name like Sean O'Malley, for example, Sugar Sean O'Malley, he's got a name. He's making a run in the UFC and, having success in fights. He's taken some losses in some fights, but he's got a big name. Now, if he doesn't exactly get what he wants in the UFC, could somebody like that have a potential to be drawn over to boxing because of the money, or maybe just an interest in fight, something that appeals to them, something that, would make their situations be a whole lot more advantageous than they continue down the path of fighting MMA or with UFC. And I'll throw up his name because he's one of the more popular people. There's other fighters in there that have a good name. You've already seen Conor McGregor bounce over and do it and jump back and forth between the two. But the situation has, I'm not going to say drastically changed, but it's changed since the Mayweather and McGregor fight took place. Now, as far as entertainment value of the matches go, it's entertaining to see. Now, is it something that I would spend $50, $60 to go watch? Very well doubt it, and I hadn't. A lot of times you will see replays instantaneously, either on YouTube or anybody's news feed of any social media sites, or just on the story of somebody's social media. And it's not something I'm going out of my way to watch. And that's specifically me. It doesn't carry that value for me to put that much money and time into watching. Now, for other people, it may be that. But, you always get the comparisons of the fights like this. They're kind of, they're given that brand of being WWE-ish and having the smack talk and the annex in the ring, the annex before the fight, during the fight, and after the fight, the smack talk. All that goes with the entertainment. And that goes along with the lines of what's common in the world today is people look straight towards the entertainment value, and the influence value of their product. The more they can capture somebody's attention and keep them focused, or their names in their mouth, or their eyes on them, creates and develops this type of power and illusion to where you think you need to be a part of it. And I think that's whether it's real or not, it can be just as real as the next person, or part of it can be kind of staged. We all would know that a lot of people smack talk back and forth, and they know it's just to build the fight, it's to sell the fight. But yet again, it's entertaining for people to watch, and they wind up paying money to see it. That's where you kind of follow the hype. You get on that hype train, and by the time fight night is around, you have some extra dollars in your pocket. You're going to put towards a bet, or you're going to put that towards watching the fight. One of the two, or maybe you make that casual bet with your friend. But it creates this type of a following to where people are, they validate the sport in watching. Now, a lot of people don't care if it's they don't care about the integrity of the event. They don't care if it's true or not, just so they're entertained. But for me, just personally, I like to watch, the story of a person, how it begins and how it plays out and how it ends. And I like that for that story to be authentic. And I'm not too much on the dramatics of things, or the manufacturing of stories, or the hype that's given behind stories, when the story actually doesn't have any validity involved in it. It depends on the substance of the story. I need that that integrity of the story to be there for me to be put an investment in the time and effort into watching or following. But as far as like entertainment or an entertaining story, I can turn on the TV and I can watch an hour and I can be done. And that's pretty much the extent of some of these fights. I can watch 5 minutes and I can be done. Not a big investment of time, not a big investment of money. So it's just in my personal opinion to step up, for boxing and making it more mainstream, as so to speak, is going to take a little bit more than just a few popular names thrown in there of people that you've already witnessed them fight before, and you're not going to see just a lot of difference. But I will add to watch Anderson Silva go out there and put his work in. It's nice to see that. It's nice to see him continue on. I think it was probably he's probably one of my more favorite people to watch fight than the others that have been on the card. And from what I see on social media, I'm sure some of the other retired fighters will be coming along. Some of the older UFC fighters. I think Rampage is wanting to throw his name in there and get a fight. Ortiz is already there. And we'll see who else kind of steps up and comes along and puts their name in the hat to fight. But I think it's more of a money grab than anything. And I just wish the people that are going in there to fight, I hope they're taking the fight seriously, or you're going to see a lot of fights that really don't go the distance, or people that actually don't have their heart in it. They're just in there for a buck, and the fight is very lackluster. And you can look at Belfort and Holyfield. You can see the Holyfield last minute thrown in there. Yeah, was it that much of a competitive fight? Look at the Woodley and Paul fight. A lot of hype behind that. It seemed like I lived half of this year behind the hype of that fight, and they barely fought when they got in there. Silva finished Ortiz fast. It looked like quality, though, the seconds that they had in the round. But to watch some of these other guys, I hope the fight is there and those people spending their money or putting the time and effort into it get their money's worth out of watching the initial fight, and not just paying for somebody's meal ticket to stand in there and take a punch or take a dive or not train seriously, and it just be basically a circus. So if you got any thoughts on the state of boxing these days, shoot me a message, leave a comment. Also, I'll remind you to leave a review or a comment on the podcast. Let me know how you're enjoying the podcast. And I'll catch you guys next Monday for another episode on the Mega Talks podcast.